You no got keys. Okay.
I've got keys to Kelty.
It's lovely, as I said, to be back here in Kelty, and as I was saying to Sean there, it's been quite a roller coaster from beating Hibs in the League Cup to going on a great run in the Cup to Michael Tidser leaving to you stepping in, Charlie Mulgrew coming in, Michael Tidser leaving Dunfermline, Charlie Mulgrew leaving, you coming in. It's been a bit hectic up here. There's probably not a lot of clubs that have had that much up and down.
Yep.
Have you just had a wee bit of a chance to breathe this off season, even though you've been flung right into the deep end with the manager role yourself?
I don't know about breathe, but it was hectic towards the last 5-6 weeks of the season. We found ourselves in a situation that we would have been surprised at come the 1st of January. But again, us as players, we had to take a lot of the responsibility and kind of make things work again. We had 4 games to do it. We had a 4-point lead. Albeit I think we had three games against full-time teams and an Alloa who were going for the playoffs, so we knew it was going to be tough games. And I think the way the fixtures worked out, that Annan and Inverness were playing teams that were maybe, or at the time when they have as much to play for, whether it was already guaranteed playoffs and already going down. So it was stressful. Almost found myself in a position that, had we gone down, it was going to be my name next to it, which was the kind of where the pressure I get put on. But listen, it was a changing room. The changing room were excellent, and it was a real team effort. Myself, the staff, and the players that got us out of it. So from there, we could enjoy the kind of last game of the season. We'd managed to get safety before that, and I think you've seen that in the performance in the last game of the season. I thought we were excellent, and then in the off season, it was just a matter of maybe taking a week to 10 days to kind of process everything that had happened, and then the planning for the plan had already started, but we really dived into the planning for the new season.
I do want to very quickly touch on that wee end back to the season, of course, with him being one of my early footballing heroes, Charlie Mulgrew, same name as me. That's like the greatest thing in the world for a 6-year-old that's just gotten into the football back in the day. Obviously, I'm not asking you to slaughter him or whatever. I'll do that if I ever have him on. But this club isn't. We are no strangers to having first-time managers. You know, like yourself, of course, you've had a good number of years now as a coach. But how was that? Like, how was that sort of experience of somebody coming in that, I know he'd obviously done his badges and he was here, there, maybe shadowing managers and things like that, but just what really went wrong? Because I know he didn't really enjoy it. I know he said that after. It was pretty much the first thing he said was that he kind of didn't enjoy it as much as he thought he would. Did that contribute?
We still don't really know as players what went wrong. Again, we looked internally at ourselves and obviously Charlie left, and we knew we had 4 games to go. Like, we didn't finger point at MD, and like the biggest bit for me was that we had to look at ourselves. Yes, the manager in place, whenever something goes wrong, will always be the first one that people go to, but like, we knew ourselves that individually we'd dropped off, collectively we'd dropped off. If you look at the ones that maybe were key performers, they weren't performing the way they were the first 6 months, and ultimately we need to take a massive chunk of the blame for that. And again, sometimes it just doesn't work, but as a guy, he was great with everybody, and it was just one of those things that didn't work. But again, the most important thing that we spoke about as players was that we had to raise our levels, and thankfully we did.
How much then how much of an impact then did Michael Tidser and Geordie as well leaving? I mean, kind of on paper, the way that things went, it looks like that was what made a huge difference. What do you then feel as a player on the pitch added with that, really?
I don't know. I don't know. There's probably numerous reasons as to probably why things change. Whatever, us as players, you don't dissect on it too much. Tids and Geordie, we had a good. Obviously, Tids was a player here. I've been friends with Tids for 12, 13 years, and it was going really well. So again, there's not many times, but it's rare that a manager leaves to go up the way instead of maybe leaves to lose their job, and then you get that instant bounce. So we were really flying high. I think the bigger teams in the league were playing catch up because of the poor starts that they had. Whether they would have caught up eventually or we would have fell off eventually if they stayed is another question. But it was just a good relationship. Everybody was on the same page. It was a good changing room. I mean, we're just doing really well. And they deserved the move. Unfortunately, it didn't go as planned, and it's probably as harsh as it was the sacking at the time, which again it probably should never have happened. It's never nice to see that happening. But again, that probably played a part in maybe what happened here, just because of how good it was and things changing, and maybe just upset the flow of what was happening at the time. But we just look at the season in terms of we found ourselves in a position that again we should never have been in, and again we take responsibility for that. But luckily we got ourselves out of it, and we'll go again this season. Hopefully try and improve on what we did last year.
Quite a grounded approach, isn't it? You don't look at any other factors, and I suppose it's a if it ain't broke, don't fix it type situation as well. You could say then.
You can always point fingers and do all that. Like, I'm never going to come out and criticise MD. I'll criticise myself mainly, and behind closed doors if it's the players, if it's this, if it's something that I'm not happy with, we'll deal with it then. Ultimately, it's me that's going to get judged on it, and if it's the good times, in my opinion, it's the players that will get the rewards, which that's how I see it. They should get the rewards, and if it's going wrong, it'll be me. And for me, that's probably the best way to take the pressure off the players and let them focus on trying to perform on a Saturday and a match day. So that's just how I see it, and it can be grounded or whatever, but I don't want to ever take the praise for performances. It's the players that work hard on a Tuesday, Thursday, and come here after their work and they do knock their pan in. They've done it all pre-season, and there's going to be ups and downs. We know that it's a young squad. It's inexperienced. It's not going to be perfect straight away, especially how we want to play. And we just need to try and keep them. If it's good one week, again it's done. We move on to next week, and if it's poor one week, we try and dissect it behind closed doors and try and improve on that going into the next week. So we want to try and get a more consistent basis here. I think if you look at the last couple of years, it's been really good for 3-4 months, and then it's dipped dramatically. So we want a more kind of consistent basis, and that way hopefully it sees us in good stead.
We sort of then, well, as much as you have now done the interim role yourself twice, and you spoke about that there, I'd say I'd done my homework and I sat and watched Turner v Slaney, and it was Kirk Broadfoot, wasn't it? And you kind of spoke about how it was more so just about getting the guys grounded and together and just steadying the ship for however long it was going to be. And as much as you yourself, as we say, you've been coaching maybe for what, about 4 or 5 years now, just away from the club. What sort of them surprises has even just stepped now into the full on you're the manager had? Because I'm sure it wasn't as linear as you maybe thought it would be.
I wouldn't say surprises. Obviously I worked really closely with Tids when he was here. The interim charge, that being in interim charge probably surprised me a wee bit. I was quite comfortable and happy playing. And I never planned for it to be here. Obviously I'd applied for a job away from here when I was playing in the off season before I signed another contract last year. I just thought at the time of January, I was like, it's going to be too hard for me to be going from the changing room into the manager's office, because the board spoke to me about, like, are you going to apply for it? And at first my answer was no. I just thought I didn't think the players would maybe take it as the way I wanted it, having been their teammate and a wee bit of the class clown in the dressing room and that. And then after the first game up at Montrose in January, it changed my approach, or changed my mind a wee bit, just because of how much the boys put into the game and like how much they gave me. I thought, do you know what, maybe they will take it. And I had a conversation with CJ after it, and he was like, yes, you're the class clown, but you're also the one that sets the standards and has a go at us in training. And that really, I done a 360 on it, and I was yes one day, no the next day, and then I spoke to the board and just said, listen, I want to throw my name in the hat. It's probably too late. And then obviously ultimately they gave it to Charlie, which was fine. And then obviously towards the end of the season we found ourselves in that position again, and having that experience the first time probably helped me in a more dangerous position in the league. But no, I've enjoyed it. I love I love coaching. It's something I've done since I was 21. Even when I was at Morton, I'd always done stuff away from here, whether it was Morton Academy, Thistle Academy, and then more so when I came here, I went into Rangers. Had a good 2 years or 18 months in there, and then I went to the B team at Queen's Park, where I really learned a lot. It was full time. It was with the B team, working with the first team as well, and I learned a lot under the kind of Dutch model that we had there. So it's kind of everything's kind of played its part into helping me to where I'm now.
We'll get back to more recent and pressing issues later on, but take us back to the start in classic James English style. What was the upbringing and then the sort of footballing background up until your first deal that you managed to land?
Boys club up till about 9, 10, and then I signed for Rangers, I think, when I was 9, 9.5, 10, I think it was. And I stayed there till 15. Loved every minute of that. Then went to Kilmarnock for 2 years, and I lost my way a wee bit. I fell out of love with football. Just I'd been 3-4 nights a week up at Rangers for 5-6 years, and then the same at Kilmarnock. So I actually ended up like kind of stopping that pro youth sort of setup, and I went to boys club just for a year to play with my mates and just enjoy it a wee bit more and get back to kind of being a kid playing football again. And then for there, I had a trial down at Middlesbrough, and then I came back up. That's when Morton reached out, and I just had a conversation with my parents, and I just said I'm maybe going to give it one last shot. And for there, it just kind of happened quite quick. Signed for Morton. I think I trained the Monday, Thursday, and then we played I think it was the Youth Cup on the Sunday. And then the manager at the time, Alan Moore, pulled me in after the game and said, what do you do during the week? We want you to come in training with the first team. And then for the Monday, I was in with the first team, and I made my debut on the Saturday in the Scottish Cup after it. So it all happened quite quick, and then for there it was 7-8 years at Morton. So it happened quite quick when I went to Morton, but growing up, it was always football every night of the week. You're out in the streets or up at Rangers training, and then eventually I got my break at Morton unexpectedly at left back.
So did the Middlesbrough thing, was that just a trial? Did that kind of fall?
That was on the back of the kind of season at Boys Club. They invited me down for 3 weeks. And I actually done really well for 3 weeks. I came back up and I thought that was kind of it, and it was a good experience. And then they'd asked me back down for another 3 weeks. And it was training with the reserves and the first team. But I'd never been full time, miles off it fitness wise, but done well kind of when the balls were out. But there wasn't a deal there, but it was a great experience for me. And then when I came up, it kind of gave me that wee fire to go, do you know what, let's give it another shot. And Morton had actually reached out before I'd went down, and then when I came back up, I thought I'll give it another shot. And luckily for me, the kind of window in which happened, the first team left back was out injured, and I'd played left back for the 19s. First time in my life, and I'd done quite well, so the manager brought me in, and I think I played 14-15. I think I had 14-15 starts that first season at 18 at Morton, and that's where it just stayed there. I was happy there. I enjoyed it. The old chairman was good to me. It was a wee bit different. It was if you look at the team we've got in there, it was the complete opposite. I think I was 18. Tids would have been one of the next youngest at maybe 22, 23, and then the rest, there was a couple of other about that, but then the rest were all 30 plus, experienced players, Peter McDonald, Martin Hardy, Mark McLaughlin, Kevin Rukovic, that sort of mould. So that was a real eye opener going into that atmosphere.
The man's environment and the man's game, you could say then.
Listen, it was a grounding, that a kind of upbringing that I'm glad I got. Mm-hmm. I think it's installed a lot in me, that kind of resilient side that you didn't get away with much. I think a lot of the things that happened, you wouldn't get away with them nowadays. But no, that was a good dressing room, and you take a lot from those times, because you don't see those type of characters probably anymore. You don't see those type of changing rooms anymore, just with how kind of the average age is a lot younger now. But that was a good experience.
Well, I remember Tids was saying about how he'd obviously been at Celtic for but all his kind of youth career, because he was literally just boys club for about a year, and then he ended up there. And he said just going to Morton, and then it was just bang. He's at Celtic and he's trying to pass the ball, but move the ball. He's got time to do what he wants, and then he said Morton was just, somebody would clatter you anytime you tried anything like that?
It was an introduction. It was an introduction into kind of men's football. I always had like a great leap on me, and I think it took me maybe 3-4 months training against Peter Witherspoon, Peter McDonald to learn that like sometimes I can't jump. I remember every time I went to go and like up for a header, I would just get like the slightest nudge. Whenever I left the ground, I would get a nudge off Pizzo, and I would like lose my balance. I'd be out of control when they get near the header. And it's just wee things like that, like coming up against really clever players, like kind of old-fashioned like footballers, that you had to adapt your game. You had to learn how to play against men, and it was tough. Like there was no kind of hiding place in these environments. But again, it was a good kind of schooling for me going forward and what was to come.
And then, of course, 7 and 8 years old at Morton, and then you say that it was just a really good time. We don't see a lot of just long stints at clubs anymore. Plus, as well, with a lot of your kind of contracts, it was 2 years in 1 year, and then you signed another extension, then another extension. Yep. Were they all just pretty easy decisions to make? Were you quite just settled, even personally, off the pitch there as well? Was that? Because I think
it was the first 3 years, for 18 to 21, I travelled up for Troon to play there, and again the first few years it was just about trying to get as much game time as I could. Even playing, like being a professional, if you want to call it, was like an achievement. It was maybe when Jim Duffy came in that things changed a wee bit, and I took things more seriously in terms of maybe there is like something I'm trying to achieve and aim for. His first season we won League One, and then again we had, I think it was Hibs were in the Championship that year, Rangers the following year, so there was kind of like big teams in it. But in terms of contracts, I was happy there. I absolutely loved my time under Jim Duffy. That's kind of what probably my best years were under him. For whatever reason, he just got the best out of me. Semi-finals at the League Cup at Hampden was a standout kind of day. And then it was after 7 and a half years, he pulled me in for a chat towards the end of the season, and he said, listen, the club want to offer you a 3-year deal, testimonial. And we didn't speak about money or anything like that. He just said, like, what is it you want to do? I'd never really been asked that question before. I said, I'm happy like playing, and tossing a coin, maybe in another day I would have signed the deal and stayed there. But he said that I think you're good enough to go and push yourself further and try if you can go further. So I said, listen, let me go see what there is. And there was 3-4 months. I think there was still 3-4 months left this season. So I knew I'd try to kind of keep performances up. I'd had a great 2 years before getting Team of the Year and going on that scoring run that I went on. And I'd actually spoke to St Mirren about maybe going there. They'd went up to the Premier League, and that was close. But then Jack Ross went to Sunderland, literally as it was getting maybe spoke about. And then I'd spoke to Thistle, who just came down, and obviously a massive club. I thought I kind of jumped at the chance to go there, but for the minute I went there, everything seemed to go wrong for me, which was a real tough 3 years there, and I kind of regret that I've got is I didn't get to show what I could have done. I still think I had improvement in me, but that's just one of the things. But I was comfortable at Morton. I was really happy. I enjoyed my time there. I loved working under Duffy, but I knew when we had that chat, I had a feeling that he wouldn't be there. He never came out right and said it, and I think it'd been 5 years, and I just couldn't imagine being at Morton without him as my manager. So it was a kind of good time for me to go and find something else.
We'll talk about Jim Duffy, who I'm sure Tids have described as your dad.
My dad.
When he was when they were both kind of, well, because they were both sort of sat here, you know, they were kind of having their own wee show at the side half the time. I want to though ask if now that, do you know, like you say, you had a great relationship with him and you kind of didn't really fancy going anywhere without him, but now that you're in a hot seat yourself, do you not kind of reassess your relationship with him, but do you almost pick out wee things that you didn't quite notice with him now that you're a manager and you take into your own?
The one thing about the gaffer was even feels weird calling him Jim. He was an unbelievable man manager. That's probably what you take from him after you leave him. He just knew how to get the best out of people. Now everybody will say that he was my dad, I was his boy, but he didn't go on like that. He was hard on certain people. He knew the ones that could maybe take it, and he would get a reaction out of everybody from that. And I remember there was always one day, Tiz laughs about it, we'd finished training, and I wasn't that bad. I don't recall being that bad, but I think the whole standard of the group wasn't great, and it was the day before a game. And he'd never spoke to MD, like in front of MD. Like if it was a one-on-one, it was always been in his changing room or in the kind of kitchen area where they were alone. And he's pulled me and I've walked to the changing room with him, but he stopped outside his door. And he knew the boys were going to be walking by, and he's had an absolute go at me, like as the players are walking by, and he was saying, basically ended with, as it stands right now, you're not playing tomorrow. And I think I'd played like 4 years straight under him, whatever. And I was like, oh my God. So I went into the dressing room, and it was Tids that called out. He was like, I could bet anything I've got in my bank that you'll play tomorrow. But the rest of the boys kind of like, he did stuff like that to get like a rise out every day. Like, they looked at it as like, if he's went for time like that, then something must be wrong. And he done it during a few games. We were 0-0 at half time at St Mirren, and he's just spent 50 minutes in the dressing room talking about me, like having a go at me. And I actually had quite a decent first half, and then we went out second half 1-1-0. He was just very clever with his approach and stuff. He could handle boys. He knew the ones to maybe give a wee bit of leeway to. Like, for example, like he knew how to handle Jai Katongo, who was maybe had his wee quirks now and again, but he handled him brilliant and again got the best at him for 2 years. But if you did cross him when you broke a line, then that was it, done. That was the other bit. Like, if you broke his trust, or he gave you maybe a few Irish boys, whatever, that maybe go back home, and he would give them the Monday off. If they didn't report back on the Tuesday for whatever reason, flight cancelled or this or that would be them done. So he was very honest, but he could deal with players, and that was a bit that, as a young boy at the time, 21, 22, you maybe never noticed. You thought like, he's harsh on me, whatever, but he was great at managing players, and for me, it's the best spell I've had as a player, the 5 years under him. And he gave you that belief as well that you could go into any game winning it. That was the other thing, that even when you were going to Easter Road away, Ibrox away, you were going into games knowing that it wasn't like, it wasn't going to be a 6-7-0 doing. It was, you had a chance in the game, and we were always well organised. Maybe not as in possession as attractive as what people want nowadays, but we were organised, and he installed that belief in us that we could compete with the best teams. We had some great results under him. We beat Rangers, we drew 2 each with Rangers at Ibrox. We beat Hibs 3-0 away. We drew twice away with Hibs as well. So there was a couple of big nights in there, even Dundee United at home in the quarterfinals of the League Cup to get us to Hampden. I don't know if there's been a championship team in the semi-finals since. Maybe 1 or 2, but he just gave us that belief. So there's loads from each manager, just different bits. Like, obviously with Jim Duffy, it was more his man management. Kevin Thompson as well was massive in terms of how he managed players and his kind of the aura that he had as well. So again, from you take wee bits from each manager, and you kind of bits that you like, bits that you don't like, and ultimately that's where everybody probably gets a lot of their stuff from, just how they deal with it.
Clinching the league though on the last day as well, wasn't it?
Yep.
Under Duffy, that must have been quite. Give us the run into that, because that must have been, especially at quite a demanding club like Morton, given that he's been down, and we know what the supporters are like there as well. That must have been a pretty exhilarating time, that one.
It was actually stressful more than anything. We'd had a meeting, so we'd get beat off. I think it was Brecon at home on the Saturday, and we had a meeting on the Monday. It was the first time we'd ever really called a team meeting. And he said that him and Hadji had spoke before the Brecon game, said that we had to win 5 out of 6 to win the league. Because I think we're sitting third or fourth, we're only ever, I think, clear at the top. And he was like, you've lost your one game. He was like, you've got 5 games that you need to go win. And I think I don't know if he thought it was going to be like a positive chat, but we were all walking out thinking, we're never winning 5 games in a row here. But I think one of the games, the results, I don't know if it was in these 5, but we were 2-0 down to Steny on 79 minutes and we won 3-2. We were 1-0 down to Ayr on 89 minutes. We'd won 2-1. I think Forbesy scored the winner in the 95th or something. The 2-0 with Steny, Steph McCluskey scored in the, I don't know, 90 whatever, to make it 3-2. So we scored 3 in 10 minutes, scored 2 in about 3 minutes against Ayr. We went to Dunfermline, who had a disappointing season. They were probably favourites to win the league, but they weren't in the running for it. I think we won. I think it was 3 or 4-0 that day, away from home. And then the second last game, we were away to Stranraer, and if Stranraer beat us up there, they won the league. That was it, and it was on Alba. So we went up. We knew we couldn't get beat. We knew we had to win the game. And we went out. I think we were 2-0 up first half. And then we knew kind of what was at stake. With the game planning that was out the window. You just kind of don't want to come back down the road without losing. So we held on, and then after that game, we knew it was in our hands. So the build up to the Peterhead game, it was more excitement. Cap, I don't think I'd seen Capo as busy. If it wasn't like a big team that was in town, I think there was 6,000 or 7,000 there. And the atmosphere was brilliant, warm up, everything. You were just looking forward to it. And we went 1-0 down after 4 minutes for a corner, and the place just went silent. Again, probably not heard Capo that quiet. And that was a real kind of looking about, and we were just, nobody really said much. We knew what we had to do. And then we went in at half time, 2-1 up, and they'd had a man sent off. And then second half, you had that sense of, it's done, we just need to try and get the third. And Dick McManus, I'm sure it was Dick McManus scored the third. But aye, it was a great day just to win it with such a young squad. I think it was only me and I don't know who, there was me and one other that were left over for the previous year. So it was a whole new squad, and the majority of us were 21, 20, 22, all young boys looking for first team minutes. So to do it with a kind of group of boys, it was a real close changing room. That's the other thing. Like we were all good pals. So that was a special day.
We say there that you had your offers after Morton. There was a few interesting clubs that were apparently in for you. They were saying that Brendan Rodgers was looking at you. A couple of teams down in the Black Country, but like, was there anything to them? Was it?
Not. Listen, I know of one. After it was the year that I'd scored 11 in the championship campaign. I think I scored my 9th on Boxing Day. So I'd scored 9 in the first 5-6 months of the season. And then, that's not getting marked double. The second half I'd managed to score 2. So I'd scored 11 that season. And we'd finished 4th and we got into playoffs. And my agent at the time told me that Kashinya was coming to watch me at Capel, which I didn't ever really listen to people saying that they might want you, he might want you. If an offer was on the table, then I'd know it would be true. But it was after the game, my mum went, he was actually there. And I'd scored after like 10 minutes. And then we went up to the second leg. They'd turned it round. Dundee United won 2-1 the second half. And we went up in the second leg and get put out. But for me, I never really listened to concrete or rumours that they might want you. I know there was a lot of paper articles, but nothing came in. And I know there was interest the year before. It might have been that year. I know there was interest because the chairman said, or the gaffer Duffy at the side, he went for 28-1 or something like that to like 1-2 for the Motherwell job. I remember that. And I remember the chat going mental saying like, the gaffer's away, like they're never that wrong with that much of a move. And I'd spoke to him in the kitchen at the training ground, and he was like, "Listen, don't get excited. I'm not going anywhere. I don't know where it's came from." And I was like, "Oh," because I thought if he went at the time, I would have went with him. And he went, "You've still got a year left. It doesn't matter what happens. The chairman will want a fortune for you, so you're not going anywhere." And I know there was a couple of clubs that maybe phoned up, but nobody was going to pay the money that he wanted, I wouldn't even paid it if I was a millionaire. So there was chat, but nothing really till the season after, when I was a free agent. But that was actually the first 2-year deal I'd signed at Morton, because I was buying a house. So I'd signed 6 1-year contracts, and then I was buying a house, and I remember saying that, can I get a 2-year, because just for my mortgage, like it'll be better with the bank. But I've probably shot myself in the foot doing that. Whether I'd have went somewhere or not, on the back of that season is another question. I'd like to think I would have. But again, then the season after is when Thistle came about.
Is that why you moved to a Glasgow club then, just so the banks couldn't chase you up?
There was a couple when I'd went to Thistle. Dundee were in for us, but then I signed McCall came in and I'd signed a new 2-year deal there. But no, it was just comfortable with the kind of how my life was panning at the time, that Thistle was a good option. It was close by for family, and it made sense at the time to go there.
Well, the kind of start of your Thistle career, I know obviously as we get further into it, it just seems to continue to drop a wee bit, but the start of it, just in the whole context of the club, seemed a bit mental. So did Alan Archibald leave quite early on that season, and then Gary Caldwell comes in, has to overhaul the squad because you are sitting about the bottom of the table?
So Archie had signed me for Morton, and I'd went in there. And listen, the budget obviously got drastically cut, I think.
Was there not usually like a Chinese takeover or something like that as well?
I don't know. There was hundreds of stuff with Colin Weir, maybe. I don't know all that behind the scenes. There was a few rumours of stuff, but Archie, listen, I loved it. Him and Scotty Patterson, I loved the training. I just enjoyed being there. That was an enjoyable pre-season, and I really felt as if I was going to do well. Had a great start to the Betfred Cup, and then the first league game was at home to Falkirk, won 2-0, and I was getting more out my shell. Obviously, I hadn't known anything else but Morton for 8 years, and then the second game I went to Dundee United is when probably the start of the downfall over the 3 years happened for me. When I think it was 15 seconds into the game, I done my cruciate.
You done your cruciate, and then you had a slipped disc as well. Did you jump over a hurdle or something?
Aye, so I'd done my cruciate, and I actually came back from my cruciate injury, so I missed the full season. And I went and done my rehab with St Mirren, who I was maybe meant to go to, because our head physio at Thistle had went to Dundee United, and the physio that we hadn't dealt with a cruciate before, and Archie wanted me to kind of get the best treatment possible. And Alan McQueen, he'd done Archie's rehab, so I went there and I actually loved it. It was 6 months of the hardest work I've ever done, and I came back in really good nick. Pre-season was fine. I think 10 games, 15 games, and then COVID hit, so then that season was cut short. And then we came back for COVID, again was out running with the programmes that we had, came back for COVID, and I'd played 90 minutes under McCall. So we played 90 minutes on the Wednesday, and he kind of stated that what he's seen as his starting 11 for the Wednesday night after it, or the week after, would play 90 on the Wednesday, we played Ayr, and then the kind of subs or the backup 11 at the time would play on the Friday against Hearts. So I'd played the 90 on the Wednesday. Thursday came, and one of the centre backs for the next 11 pulled out with an injury, and I was to play in it, and I was like, I've just played 90 yesterday, like that's crazy at pre-season. So I'd played the first 20 minutes at home to Hearts, and I ball over the top, and I'd done my hammy. I'd never done a muscle before. I just felt like I'd been shot in my leg, and I had a 12-week. I think it was 12 weeks. I didn't actually feel bad after it settled down, and I was doing a bit of running, and then I went for a scan, and it said I've got a grade 3 tear in it, which I didn't understand how I couldn't feel. And then my first session back from that, we were doing the warm up, and I jumped a hurdle, and it was like a knife going into my back. I just felt a shooting pain, and I didn't know what it was. I actually got a fright. Because I've been out for so long, I tried to I couldn't even jog properly, and the boys were like, "What are you doing? Like, drop out." I was like, "I can't. I need to." Like, I wasn't wanting to accept that I was going to be injured again, because I'd went 8 years at Morton without a single injury. Like, I'd never missed anything. And then from there, that was the beginning of like a 14-month grey area where we didn't know what was going on. We didn't know how to fix it. Get taken to hospital because I numerous things that were going wrong. MRI scan after MRI scan that showed the disc moving and all that, and eventually I had to go see. I think it was after 6 months. I think I tried to get back training twice, but I knew it wasn't right. My back, I couldn't move. I went and seen a specialist, and then eventually I'd got 2 epidurals and I think 8 injections into my spine to stabilise it a wee bit, and I got back playing. But at the time, with the budget, McCall wanted his own team, which is fair enough. And I needed to go play games. I didn't play effect. I think I played maybe 20 games in 3.5 years. And then that's when Kelty came about.
What is that sort of personal roadmap like? What was that sort of roadmap to recovery that we just don't see as
the cruciate one? The cruciate one was frustrating because I'd just signed for the club. I had a 2-year deal. So I knew I had time on my side a wee bit. And the rehab for that, you know what you're doing. It's an intensive rehab. It's hard work. And I got back for that. It's the back one mentally done me in. Because we went 6 months effectively. I'd done nothing. I was up in the gym doing like basic yoga stretches and nothing. It wasn't settling down. It wasn't getting any better. There wasn't really a treatment for it. And it was just a bit in limbo. And then even it wasn't about, I think, 8-9 months in where we'd said about getting an X amount of injections, and then restarting basically from the beginning. So that was mentally tough. A lot of dark days up in the gym yourself, and no knowing when you were going to get back playing, no signs of improving. So I did struggle a lot with that one. In the family, and that was they knew how much I was struggling. But I was just happy that coming here wasn't for money, or I'd done another year at this, so I could have stayed and been full time and just whether I'd have played or not. But I wanted to go and play football again. Like I was getting, but I think it was maybe 28. I wanted to go play games, and I knew coming here under Kevin Thompson it was going to be enjoyable, and I loved every minute of that. But the rehab and injuries they weren't great.
Nah. Well, you did say that, even a couple of years ago last time you were kind of on the air, that you had no regrets coming here. I hope you still don't, of course.
No.
I mean, I'm starting to like this club as well, right enough. I mean, it's the second time in 11 months that I've been here, but as I say, I prefer East to Fife, but that's something that everybody that has ever watched this knows all too well. But that was around about the time that you started getting coaching roles as well, wasn't it? Away from Kelty, then did that make, and as we'd sort of said it before as well, about how the jump from full-time to part-time is quite the jump, even just for your personal lifestyle's sake. Did that kind of make things a wee bit easier, or were you still quite needing to adjust to it?
I don't like. I've been coaching even when I was full-time, like Thistle and Morton, like in the evenings. Coming part-time, I put a real emphasis on. Like I knew that's what I wanted to do after football, and ultimately football's one of the main reasons, or I've maybe played it as long, was to get into management. It was a kind of path in the way for that. But when I came here, Kevin Thompson helped me get into Rangers, and that's when I kind of started taking it more seriously. It was hard juggling part-time here, part-time there, trying to get any sort of full-time job at the time. I'd never worked, and then from Rangers going to Queen's Park full-time, I had football full-time during the day, and then still playing up here. So going part-time kind of earlier than what was expected maybe forced my hand a wee bit in terms of coaching, but it's always been the plan, and ultimately we find ourselves here today.
I'm so thankful that you decided to do that. But I always find that statement now really funny, that you've never worked, and I've spoken to a couple of guys about this. I spoke to Johnny Stewart about this when he was at Trinent, about how after he left Hearts he was a bit like, I've got no experience.
Right.
It's like just basic jobs and all that, and they're like, give us a time you've helped a customer, and you're like, I played for that. So that's about as good as you're going to get. The whole Rangers role, though, I find that very interesting. And we all talk about like, the facilities that young players have, why going to Murray Park, or even just any big club or any big facility. But as a young coach, what sort of facilities do you feel really actually helped you there, and who did you have around you which helped you, and what have you taken from it?
I think when I went in there, Mark Spalding was massive for me. He's over in America just now. He was great when I went in there. We worked alongside each other at the 16s, which is where we obviously coached Jack Wiley, who we've just signed. He was good, but I went and I kind of done like, I think it was between 4 to 6 months. I was coaching at night in at Rangers with the 16s, but I used that time to go in during the day with the 18s and kind of shadow Cameron Campbell. He's now on the first team staff at Tottenham, and I got on really well with Cam. I thought he was excellent. I really liked his kind of ideas and his approach to dealing with players and his kind of style of coaching. So just wee bits like that I used to. I didn't want to just go in there for the sake of it and say, "Oh, I coach here at Rangers." I wanted to go in there and actually learn. And then after the season and a half with the 16s, I wanted to go up the way. I wanted to work with older players, and because that's ultimately where I've always wanted to go. But there wasn't an opportunity there, and then I managed to get in touch with Ryan Boyker at Queen's Park and had a couple of meetings, a couple of interviews, and I got given the B team job there, which was one of the best 18 months, or the best years that I've experienced in football. Just a complete new way of thinking, a new way of training. And Robin Veldman came in as manager, and I done double. I done the mornings with the first team, and then in the afternoons or after lunch with the B team. It was a job, but it was football. I didn't see it as a job, and it was extra hours on the pitch. So I'd say the last 2 years, or sort of 3 years, with those two really has helped me, and it's exposed me to being on the pitch and getting my way of playing across.
Well, Queen's Park is a club that I just can't seem to get away from these days. They just come up in every interview, and not that I'm complaining. I might have Sean Crichton on after this, by the way, so I'll fucking cut that bit out. But that whole period of 5 years or so, like when obviously Willie Hockey's City money was in the club, and of course that's coming out very soon as well, but the whole Dutch Revolution, if you like, that still fascinates me, even though it didn't quite end the way they would have first seen it. You say that it was a different way of playing, training, just a different way of operating. Give us more of an insight into that.
Marion himself, like he's kind of based himself off Brad Pitt and Moneyball. Like just a lot of it was on.
That's something as well that just doesn't escape me for these interviews. Somebody makes some sort of wee reference to it, and everything.
Everything was based on data. How you sign players. Obviously, did the cognitive test for MD that came into the club, so you wouldn't sign a player unless they get given the.
AZ Alkmaar were doing that before, which would make sense.
The cognitive test, the kind of brain test, which is like we looked at, it's just hundreds of wee like games that you've probably played as a kid on a computer. But that would, I think he studied with a neuroscientist for like 3-4 years before he went into Alkmaar, and parts of the brain that take on information and how it's relevant to football. So that was just kind of eye-opening and all that. And then again, just the kind of training module and how we would train the players. It was just different from anything I'd experienced as a player. And again, it was perfect for me. He knew that I wanted to coach a team to play football and build up through the phases, all that sort of stuff. And it was a perfect environment for me. He knew that he had somebody that wanted to follow what he wanted to do. And I loved it. It was quirky, it was different, and I know a lot of people in probably Scottish football had their opinion on it, but I thought he was excellent. I was fortunate. I look at it back, and I'm fortunate to have worked with him for 18 months, and then we got the kind of dreaded news for us that we were going to Ajax, which was inevitable, and that's the kind of bit that I said at the time, like, if Ajax are coming in for somebody, then he's good at what he does.
Yeah.
I thought he was brilliant. He was great with me. It was a good learning experience, 18 months, and I'm thankful I had it.
Have you added to your vocabulary a wee bit, and maybe just with all the buzzwords that you might have been throwing around?
That was the other bit. He was quite not like normal. He was
English isn't his first language anyway. So
he was good. He was a great guy. I really liked him. I know a lot of people might say about arrogance and stuff like that, but he was just assured of what he wanted, and he had a proven record at working. I think there was a stat about 48.7% of players that went through the Alkmaar Academy became footballers, professional footballers somewhere. So it was the best. I think it was 20% more than Madrid, Barcelona, and stuff like that. So he knew what he was doing. I just think coming over here with something different, people are always going to have an opinion on it. But I thoroughly enjoyed working with him.
Well, you can't win with some folk, can you? And in a weird way, a lot of football fans are quite conservative in their view. Do you know, it's very much because I'm sure there's a lot of people that have a bit of an opinion about this club in the way that, you know, there was obviously a bit of finance put in the Lowland League to rise up the leagues, but ultimately then you wouldn't be complaining if it was your team that get a wee bit of backing for that. But and then Dom Thomas actually spoke about that, about Robin Veldman, that actually not as much as it didn't end as well as, you know, they would have wanted. He was like, just the way his football worked, and he's Heerenveen now, isn't he?
He went to Club Brugge after Queen's Park, the B team.
Ronnie Dyler was manager,
and then he got the Heerenveen job. He's only 20 minutes from there, but he was brilliant. When he got the job pre-season, he asked me to come in with the first team and help out. And again, he was perfect for me. He was that link that I needed. He invited us in. He would speak all the time about football. We even speak still today. We'll check in once a week with each other. He was just another good guy, and how he's seen football was attractive to me. It was how I wanted to kind of my teams to play and coach. Ultimately, it didn't work. That for me, there was reasons why. But again, he was somebody that maybe because he wanted to do things a certain way. It didn't work out, but he's a great guy. Again, thankful for the opportunity he gave me and this kind of time that he invested in me. And again, I got a lot of debt to him.
I've actually spoken to him on some Twitter. He followed my Twitter after I spoke to Dom Thomas, and I was like, well, you know, might as well ask him if he fancies coming on. And he very, very politely turned down my request, which, you know, I won't get into or whatever. But he was like, texting from the Conference League final. All right. Fucking game was still going on. There was still 5 minutes left of the first half, but you've not got any neuroscientists kicking about here or anything.
Nah, that bit there's where that will go with my eye.
How high does the sort of advancement though here go? Do you know if you get any maybe not quacky roles? I don't want to put
listen, I'm not going to sit here and say we do things exactly how we did it at Queen's Park. Like, no. I'm trying to make or kind of add wee bits to here that I think we can improve as a club, as a community, and we've got roles. A lot of them are volunteer roles that it's for people that I know and I've worked with through the years. That again, it enhances their CV, being able to do the role. Ultimately, it won't pay or whatever. But if it's the recruitment side of things, if it's the analyst kind of roles as well, we try and we've got people in place for that now because it's how I like to work. We'll do feedback, we'll do video feedback that. Maybe a lot of teams might not want to do it, but it's how I want to coach. And again, we just need to be a wee bit inventive in how we get those roles filled, because it's not as if we can sit here and offer 6, 7, 8 people of our coaching staff decent money. But I would just try and make it we try and get it as close to what I would do full time as possible. The boys know that. Everybody that spoke to in the summer, they knew that. That's why we went after the kind of profiler player. Like I want to have a good managerial career. I want to go up the way, and I want players that are kind of young and hungry to go full time as well, and try and balance off each other.
Moneyball, I'm sure they said adapt or die in that. Sorry, that's me done it again, Moneyball. Did you leave Queen's Park in January? Was that?
No, I think it was about April. The April time, aye.
Yeah, and I can imagine that's when a few of the changes that were starting to come through at Queen's Park about, you know, kind of going forward and what will eventually happen this season at the end of next season were kind of starting to turn. How was the sort of the feel of the place about that time?
It was fine. My situation is different. I don't think anything was in talks at the time.
Well, they put a lot of money into the academy, didn't they? And then that's kind of been one of the things that's going to take a bit of a hit now, is it not? That well, they had.
They've dropped down for the elite level, but again, that's just the decision they've made. I was away from there at the time. How it is now is probably different from when I was there. And again, when Ryan left, similar to the Duffy situation, it wasn't going to be what I had experienced there. So it's probably a good time for me. And then again, I focused on my football after that.
Do you think, and you can be as biased as you want in this answer, do you think more clubs could benefit from hiring in-house, if you like, in the way that you were essentially promoted from player to manager?
I think every club is different. Like, I was fortunate in terms of, like, I'd done 4 or 5. I think it was basically 2 years full time coaching at Queen's Park while still playing. Like, the opportunities are rare, and it took me a long time to graft to get that. A lot of people get jobs just out on the back of being players. So every club's different. There'll be an element of luck involved in it in terms of timing, but there's a lot of good people in the country. I know that they'll get a lot of stick for X, Y, and Z, but there's a lot of people in the country that probably deserve a chance, and hopefully they get their chance. But I'm just fortunate that having been here, I've got my chance here, and I wasn't sure. Obviously, I got down to the last 2 for another job before I'd signed my last year's contract here. And then opportunity came up here, which I know the club. I know the club will give me time to implement and try and play how I want, or how I see football being played. And we'll see where it gets us.
Well, it is a busy place up here, and you're a busy man, so we'll try and wrap us up here. I like to ask everybody the sort of same question of, let's say we are right here on the eve of the Scottish domestic season. It's kind of mental how we're already at that stage. And I'm like, well, if you're still here, which I hope you will be, was last season a success? And you're like, absolutely. And I say, well, what does a success then look like to you in a year's time at this club?
In a year's time, I think the first thing has to be remaining in the league.
Yeah.
Kelty's still a young club. Like, this is their 5th season, I think, in the professional leagues. We need to get that kind of sustainability to us, that we know we're going to be in League One. And that way we can plan year after year and gradually start an incline. We don't want to go up one, like, for example, get promoted, down the league, back up. We want to kind of stay where we are, and ultimately we want to get to the point where we're pushing for playoffs, whether it's 2 years, 3 years down the line. We need to also try and remain in the league to increase budget year after year, and improve the finances of the club. So remaining in the league is the priority, and it's a must. And us, me as a staff knows that, the players know that. But we'll have our internal goals and where we think we can go, and what is success for us inside. We want to try and push as high up the league as we can, but we know how tough it's going to be. There's 4 full-time teams in it. There's a host of part-time teams who have been in the playoffs and had playoff experience. Alloa, for example, Steny last season. So that's our goal. That's where we want to try and ultimately get to, whether it takes 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. But we want that kind of gradual incline, and hopefully we can get there.
Well, at this rate, on this trajectory, I probably will be back here at some point, just for anybody. I'll keep the transfer notifications on in case any big names come through the door. But Tam, once again, thanks for being the second Kelty Hearts manager that I've had on. I really appreciate your time, mate.
Cheers, mate. Thank you.